Any attempt at de-dollarization will eventually render a currency worthless. You might find that statement too extreme, yet China today resembles a massive ship severely damaged in a storm. While official economic data appears stable, dangerous undercurrents are surging beneath the surface. Fiscal fractures, local government collapse, and a disintegration of credit. These are the sounds of distant thunder. You cannot see the lightning, but you cannot deny that a major storm is imminent. According to official statistics, the National General Public Budget revenue for 2024 totaled 21.97 trillion yuan, an annual increase of just 1.3%. Within this figure, tax revenue reached 17.5 trillion yuan, a decrease of 3.4% year-on-year, while non-tax revenue surged 25.4% due to one-time factors. Although this presents as a slight increase in the total figure, a deeper analysis reveals that the majority of this growth is propped up by non-conventional income. Should these extraordinary revenue sources dry up, the entire financial system will prove unsustainable. More alarming is the rapid expansion of the deficit. The budget draft indicates that the National General Public Budget expenditure for 2025 is slated for 29.7 trillion yuan, creating a deficit of 5.66 trillion yuan, an increase of 1.6 trillion yuan over 2024. Local finances are especially strained. Local revenues alone cannot sustain the immense expenditures and debt repayments. Transfer payments, new borrowing, and crushing debt pressure have become the operating norm. Under this highly restrictive fiscal regime, a local finance official disclosed that, despite his province being among the nation's strongest financially, its reserves were nearly exhausted over the 3 years of the pandemic. He characterized the central government's fiscal allocation to local governments as an exploitation that sucks the marrow from the bones. He stated that, in the past, for every 10 billion yuan of revenue, the central government took 5.2 billion and the local government 4.8 billion. Now it's a 50-50 split, but the local authorities simply cannot bear the crushing weight of responsibility. He warned that the more critical issue is that since July of this year, local governments' 3 guarantees for basic livelihoods, wages, and operations have already begun to be suspended in many areas. Routine expenses like garbage removal, official vehicle maintenance, and police equipment procurement have been forcefully halted. Suspending dozens of projects is the same as the government's basic responsibilities being put on hold, he remarked, describing this as a grim picture of local incapacity. Widespread salary cuts and subsidy reductions for civil servants have become an inescapable reality. It is rumored that some civil servants have had their compensation cut 3 times since 2022, totaling a reduction of roughly 25%. However, it is crucial to understand that this is not a cut to the basic salary. Instead, it involves the systematic stripping away of bonuses, holiday pay, quarterly incentives, performance awards, and other allowances. As one official put it, when a society's finances face collapse, that society slowly spirals toward disorder. In their assessment, the local fiscal crisis is not an impending risk, it is an already erupted reality. Financial professionals have offered an expert perspective, detailing a stark trajectory of financial bleeding. They point out that since the beginning of the reform and opening up, the goal was never to enrich everyone, but rather to selectively empower the bureaucratic elite first. State-owned enterprises and critical resources have remained firmly entrenched in the hands of the power core, leaving the general populace permanently categorized as the exploited. The Great Leap Forward, famine, and cultural revolution in the early years were acts of plundering the ordinary people. During the reform era, the policy to let a part of the population get rich first referred specifically to individuals connected to the system of power. During SOE reforms, essential sectors like energy, telecommunications, and coal were preserved as core state assets under the control of the power elite. More recently, concerns that excessive low-income growth could destabilize control have led to left-leaning policies that reinforce a public purpose and weaken the market logic of governance. Fundamentally, this system is designed to drain the lifeblood from the people. Some argue this is not an emotional attack, but a conclusion repeatedly validated through generations of fiscal policies, power structures, and resource distribution. A case in point involves a town's science and technology innovation center that accumulated 30 billion yuan in debt, yet perhaps only 1.1 billion was genuinely used for construction, with the majority flowing into officials' pockets. These innovation centers are merely shell entities used to secure projects and extract illicit profits. A similar incident was exposed in Guangzhou, where the state-owned Bay Area Smart Hub Innovation Park project rushed to erect 7 buildings in the Baiyun district in 80 days, only for all of them to be demolished just over a week later. The official reason cited incomplete permits, but the underlying truth points to the chaos of local vanity projects and corrupt power for money exchanges. Some analysts contend that China's former rapid growth was achieved at the profound cost of people, resources, and the environment, and that the mechanism designed to wring the last drop of blood from the people is now failing. The fiscal squeeze is merely the surface. The credit crisis is the deeper pathology. While state media has recently strived to project an image of a Chinese economy with powerful resilience and vitality, the reality at the grassroots level, factory closures, declining consumption, migrant populations returning home, deserted streets in remote areas, and sparse late-night lights, is the truest measure of the situation. A local official mentioned the significant outflow of migrant workers following factory closures, the shuttering of brick-and-mortar stores, and the public's move to drastically cut back on spending, buying only what is essential. He noted that while cheap street snacks may barely survive, their quality is increasingly uncertain. Like the ducks sensing the warmth of the spring river, the public has already felt the economic cold. He added that an even greater concern is the anxiety among officials themselves. Many have been dependent on the system for years and lack transferable professional skills. If they were suddenly unemployed, most would not know how to proceed. University graduates struggle to find a path, and middle-aged professionals have even fewer options. It is reported that many civil servants are already planning their exit strategies, with some applying to move abroad, and others even considering completely leaving the state system. At the political level, control has tightened even further. Discussions about the economy, policy critiques, or expressing dissatisfaction with leadership in WeChat groups, even using coded language, can lead to being summoned for a warning. More astonishingly, some units employ internet commentators, or wumaos, to monitor the internal speech of colleagues, reporting any counter-sentiment to their superiors. Some assert that the next few years will likely see a contraction of grassroots, civil servant positions, and a reduction in village-level subsidies, with funds redirected to surveillance, military, and security to enforce stability with an iron fist. The RMB will eventually become worthless sounds like an angry curse, but an increasing number of people are realizing it is becoming a cold, rational forecast. In financial circles, the greatest fear is not currency depreciation, but a collapse of confidence, and China today is embroiled in a systemic crisis of trust. For the past decade, Chinese finance has virtually been sustained by borrowing to survive. According to Ministry of Finance data, as of the second quarter of 2025, the balance of China's local government debt has surpassed 40 trillion yuan. Invisible debt, specifically local financing platform bonds, is estimated to be at least another 60 trillion yuan. This suggests China's true total debt could range between 130% and 160% of GDP, and this figure does not even account for the layered project bonds, platform bonds, and PPP project bonds. More alarmingly, this debt is not being deployed to create wealth, but to service old debt. In 2024, over 70% of new local government debt was dedicated to repaying previous obligations, forming a fiscal anomaly, a vicious cycle of borrowing to repay debt. You may think you are paying off debt, but you are merely digging one hole to fill another. One official commented that the fiscal problem is not about to erupt, it has already erupted. The depletion of local government cash flow is now forcing countless public service entities into a state of self-preservation. Some regions are reducing personnel under the guise of fiscal rectification, and certain counties have openly announced they can no longer afford to pay public sector wages. The majority of regions are concealing the truth by suspending bonuses or delaying payments. Media reports indicate that in 2024 alone, over 70 counties and cities nationwide experienced financial payment difficulties, making delayed salaries for public servants a routine occurrence. The consequences of this fiscal hemorrhaging are seeping into the lives of ordinary citizens. slower health insurance reimbursements, reduced school subsidies, suspended city sanitation services, shorter bus routes, all seemingly minor shifts that signal the breakdown of the fiscal machinery. The ripple effect of the financial crisis is the collapse of monetary credit. History shows that whenever a nation attempts to abandon the dollar system without a solid economic foundation, its currency inevitably ends up as worthless paper. Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Argentina, and Russia are all examples. In 2024, China's M2 money supply exceeded 310 trillion yuan, growing 8.6% year-on-year, a historic peak. Stated plainly, the Chinese government is frantically printing money to fill its fiscal black hole. There is an iron rule in monetary theory: when a government begins to rely on the printing press to function, collapse is not a question of if, but when. This warning may sound provocative, but it is becoming increasingly relevant. Do not keep all your money in the bank. Some argue that this is not a safe haven, but a trap. Why? Because the banks themselves are embedded within the fractured fiscal system. By early 2025, multiple small and medium-sized banks had reported difficulty withdrawing cash. Depositors at some rural banks are unable to make withdrawals, principal-protected wealth management products are imploding, causing investors to lose everything. Real estate trusts are defaulting, and private financing is freezing. The entire financial system is contracting liquidity from the top down. When the government defaults, ordinary people are always the first to be sacrificed. There's advice for the public to consider two key actions. 1. Asset diversification, avoiding placing all funds in RMB-denominated assets and allocating a portion to safe haven tools like the US dollar and gold. 2. Prioritizing cash, as physical currency held in hand is more valuable than a digital account balance. In global financial history, the poor are always the first casualties of a currency crisis. From the 1998 Asian financial crisis to the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and the post-2020 pandemic debt wave, capital always has an escape route, but the common person never does. If China's previous crises were merely economic problems, the current fiscal collapse constitutes a governance problem. Finance is the lifeblood of the government. Its depletion causes the regime to weaken. The former invisible crisis is transitioning into an open collapse. Mass resignations among civil servants, the halt of local projects, an expanding wave of corporate bankruptcies, stagnant real economy, plummeting consumer confidence, a weakening RMB, foreign capital flight, and the erosion of middle-class wealth. Chinese society is spiraling into a terrifying cycle: no money, printing money, inflation, loss of trust, and ultimately, even less money. In October 2025, the People's Daily continues to proclaim on its front page that the economy is resilient and improving over the long term. However, the Urban Knight tells a different story. Half of the subway advertisements are empty, store discounts are constant, and job search sites are piled high with posts on layoffs and pay freezes. The sensitivity that the duck is the first to know when the river is warming is no longer a hidden current. It is a bone-chilling cold. In 1989, the Soviet Union also officially claimed fiscal stability and social control, but 2 years later, its currency collapsed and the government fell. At that time, the Soviet ruble plummeted from 1 to 1,200 against the US dollar, wiping out people's savings overnight. Today's China faces similar conditions: fiscal deficits, loss of official control, social anxiety, monetary distrust, and the collapse of domestic demand. The difference is that before the Soviet collapse, people could still convert to the US dollar. China's current foreign exchange control is even stricter than the Soviet Union's was. One final statement rings like an alarm bell. The fiscal crisis has already erupted and the RMB's credit is collapsing. 2026 will be more challenging than 2025. Perhaps one morning, the numbers in your bank account will still glow, but you will discover that they are no longer worth anything. This is not a prediction. It is a reality unfolding right now. The signs of China's fiscal collapse, from local debt to currency devaluation, from civil servant pay cuts to the public tightening its belt, are all converging toward one point: credit collapse. The worst thing for a society is not poverty, But when everyone stops believing in the value of money, when power compromises the financial system, and when the RMB loses trust, the true collapse is only just beginning. Thanks for watching and joining us on this journey to unveil China's many layers. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated. See you in the next video.